Welcome to UNAM Chicago's CAFÉ EXPRESSO, a space for bilateral conversations with people from all walks of life. Tune in to Spanish Public Radio and follow us on social media. And now your host, Alberto Foncerrada.
Welcome everyone to another edition of Café Expresso. My name is Alberto Foncerrada and I am your host. This is a program of UNAM Chicago in alliance with Spanish Public Radio. And today we have a very special guest in Mexico City, I believe. Her name is Alethia Fernández de la Reguera. Hi, how are you, Alethia?
Hello, Alberto. Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Very, very happy that you were willing to come and talk to us about Caravanas. First of all, let me tell you, Alethia is a research fellow at the Institute of Legal Studies at UNAM. That's how you translate Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas, right?
Yes, Institute of Legal Studies.
Okay, and she is the co-author of this book, Caravanas, along with Luciana Gandini, a research fellow at American University, and Juan Carlos Narváez Gutiérrez. Alethia, first of all, congratulations on Caravanas. I think it's an amazing piece of work for our audience. You'd be impressed to know that they just recently were awarded the William M. Leogrand Award for Best Scholarly Book on Latin America or Latino Studies. This award was established in 2012 to honor William Leogrand's tenure as Dean of American University's School of Public Affairs. And this is the first time a book published in Spanish gets this distinction. So first of all, again, hello, congratulations on this. And please, we'd love to hear about the book.
Thank you, Alberto. Well, we are very pleased and grateful for this award. We published this book, Caravanas, last year, and it is the result of a very in-depth research that we conducted since 2018 and along 2019, following the caravans arriving from Central America to Mexico. And as you said, we are three colleagues from the Institute of Legal Studies, Luciana Gandini, Juan Carlos Narváez, and myself. And we are sociologists, and we conducted fieldwork in strategic places along with the caravaneros, with the people who are there, forced migrants, who at the end of 2018 started to arrive in very big, massive groups as a strategy to be better protected against traffickers and also against all the other risks and costs of crossing Mexico irregularly. So the caravanas became a very important phenomenon to understand the migration context and migration policies in Mexico and in the US. If you remember, there are like different moments with the caravans. The first one, as I said, it was in October 2018. And this first caravan practically arrived easily to the US. The idea was that these groups that, as I said, they are fleeing from very, very desperate situations, from criminal violence and poverty in their countries of origin. They were trying to seek for asylum in the US. But this situation became a very hard problem and a very difficult crisis and humanitarian problem in the northern border of Mexico, because with the administration of Trump, the asylum system in the US became very difficult to access. So when the first caravan arrived in Mexico and crossed the country to get to the US, they faced with the impossibility of getting to the US, of asking asylum. And then new caravans arrived in 2019 in the context of this program that was called Quédate en Mexico, or the MPP program. that the US asked the asylum seekers to wait in Mexico during their processes in the US. And this was very difficult because there were around 60,000 or 70,000 people waiting in the southern border of the US, in the side of Mexico, or I must say in the cities of Tijuana, Matamoros, Ciudad Juarez, and they waited for many months, first of all, to get to the lists, to be able to start their procedure in the US. And then while they were waiting for their procedure for their hearings in the US, they waited from the Mexican side. Along 2018 and 2019, the caravans didn't stop, even though we knew that there was it was very clear that it was very impossible to cross to the US to ask for asylum. Still, caravans kept coming, and the Mexican government, together with the US government, the response was to militarize and to create even more detention centers along the southern border of Mexico to stop caravaneros. We know what happened, and is the same situation that we know results every time that the border gets tougher, with higher controls and with a bigger or harder discourse that criminalize migrants. The result is that migrants still come, but in a clandestine way, facing, of course, higher risks and facing different types of violence. So the book is the final story of all this. There is a final story when we explain everything that we have been systematizing and documenting along those 2 years. And it is something, or I believe that this research is particularly interesting because we work with different testimonies and different actors. We were not only interviewing migrants themselves, but also we interacted with other actors from the local government, federal government, international agencies, and also NGOs. So what we tried to propose in the book is that the complexity of the migration policies, the complexity of this phenomenon of caravanas and the transits along Mexico, from, of course, the point of view of human rights, but also introducing the different responses from different actors. We have different moments in the caravans. As I said, the first one was in 2018 with the government of Peña Nieto. And actually, the Mexican government did not expect the caravan, so didn't know very well how to respond to the caravan. They waited for 3 or 4 days until they opened the doors and they had these different services for people, along with criminalization and detention. And then with the new caravans in 2018, the new administration of López Obrador just came to administration. And what they did is that they said, Mexico opens the policy for migrants. We have humanitarian aid services, and we will allow, under a human rights perspective, transit along Mexico. But very soon they decided to do the opposite. And 2 months after that, they closed the border again. They closed the possibility of accepting new caravaneros. And again, new militarization and criminalization took place. So that's what we present in the book, the different stages, the different responses from the Mexican government, along with, of course, the US policy, and with the different perspectives from the migrants, NGOs, shelters, local actors, also to understand not only what was happening in the caravan, but a very interesting element of the book, of the research, is that we also introduce the role of subjectivities from the side of public servants. So what's the impact of the subjectivity of immigration agents in the implementation of public policy? And of course, you interview agents, immigration agents, and you get to know their lives, and of course, that they also face limitations and that they also stereotype people. And at the end, the way they work and who they are and their own life stories impact their daily work and impact the interaction with migrants. So more or less, that is like what we presented in the book.
That's fascinating. Give me a second and we'll go on. Let me just interrupt you for a minute. For those of you who just logged in through UNAM Chicago's YouTube channel or Facebook page, or are not don't have the luxury of having a screen and just are listening to us through Spanish Public Radio, I'm speaking with Alethia Fernández de la Reguera. She's a research fellow at Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas, la UNAM. She's a sociologist, a specialist on migration and I believe on gender issues too. That's very impressive. That what you've been telling us, all this empirical work and empirical research based on testimonials from all sorts of people, not just the main actors, which are the migrants, but also the policymakers, the law enforcement people. Caravanas tells a story, a very dramatic story of the people who migrated. It's basically on the years 2018 and 2019 that you do these interviews, right?
Yes, and also
okay.
Part of 2020, but mainly it's in 2019.
Got it. Okay, you can go on. It's incredibly fascinating, this topic.
Thank you, Alberto. Well, yeah, I was explaining that we conducted research along different moments and places where the caravaneros caravaneros were in transit through Mexico. We started in Tapachula, that is the main point of entry, and also we found very harsh conditions in Tapachula because one of the biggest detention centers of Mexico is in Tapachula, is located there. So we also conducted research within the immigration station. That's something that is not very common in the academia, but we were allowed to be in the station. And also we visited other centers in Mexico City. So then we have this contrast between the way migrants were received in Chiapas and the way they were received in Mexico City. That is a city that has broader programs and address or focus particularly on migrants. So in Mexico City, it was more like a very big shelter where they were able to stay for some days before getting to the US. And then we were able to get to Tijuana. And that was something very interesting because we were able to compare and to analyze the contrast between what's happening in the south, in the center of the country, and in the north. And in the north, we see something that is even more complex because the caravaneros that were stuck in the north, waiting for their asylum process in the US, were mixed also with internally displaced Mexican people that are coming from Guerrero, from Michoacán, and that are trying to get to the US to ask for asylum. So there were a lot of inconsistencies in the program from the Quédate en México, the MPP, because it was a program only for Central Americans waiting for the procedure in Mexico, but we also found Mexicans themselves that were not able to properly ask for asylum in the US. And also then in Tijuana, it's very complex because you also have the transit that is coming back, deported people as well. So all this complexity that I'm talking about regarding territories, responses from the government, and also the very important role that is the important role of the NGOs and international organizations that is crucial to understand humanitarian aid and also social networking to help people is better understood if you get to read the book.
Absolutely. I mean, migration encompasses a totally new meaning today, right? And that is reflected in the book. It's no longer the family members that come to the US in search of opportunity and just to send remittances or anything. It's just like this whole family is coming and their unaccompanied children, which was kind of like scandalous here in the US because of the conditions they were facing, especially during their shelters and until recently, even in the Biden administration, they were subject to a lot of criticism. So definitely recommend the book.
Yeah. What you are saying is also very important. With the caravans, we started to see a change in the demographic profile of migrants arriving to Mexico. In the past, and for example, with a case of unaccompanied children, that is a big and dramatic situation, we had a very important crisis in 2014 with the Obama administration as well. But what we were seeing now in the caravans were not only women or men, but also very young unaccompanied children, families, the whole, as you said, whole families, women with very young children, with babies, elderly people, and also people with disabilities. And this is something that we have never seen before. This is an expression of the vulnerability that they have in the places of origin. And also very important, Alberto, you were saying, these are not people that arrive because they are seeking for the American dream or better job opportunities. This is something different because it's forced migration. That means that they need international protection. This means that these people are fleeing from very, very harsh conditions and criminal violence in their places of origin. And the problem now is that there is this contradiction within in the Mexican immigration law and the Mexican refugee law, because in one side, we do have international protection mechanisms established in the Mexican law of refugees. So we have a weak, but we still have a COMAR, that is a Comisión Mexicana de Ayuda al Refugiado, that is offering asylum, that is trying to improve the protection mechanisms, but with very, very low institutional budget. And in the other side, the immigration policy contradicts the objective of protecting migrants. The immigration policy is actually trying to detain people, criminalize, and stop migration since Guatemala. Even the last caravan was not able to cross Mexico. They stopped the caravan in Guatemala. So also in the book, we discuss that this coexistence of and contradictions in a way of two different policies and two different objectives and two different ways of thinking about migrants coming to Mexico. In the immigration law, still thinking about stopping migration and treating them as if they were economic migrants. And in the other side, we do have mechanisms to offer international protection. And that is something that is very well expressed in the book, and also in dialogue with what's happening in the US. I mean, very important part of the analysis is to understand that the Mexican immigration policy is attached or is very much in response of the US immigration policy. And Caravanas took place during the Trump administration. So that became even more, or that translated in even more harder conditions for forced migrants looking for asylum, both in Mexico and the US.
Wow. What's your take on, I mean, this has nothing to do exactly with the book now, but just the recent encounter with Vice President Kamala Harris with President of Mexico. Do you think, because she's been kind of like being mandated to basically deal with the issue of immigration?
Yes, of course. I mean, current administration and Vice President Harris, she is in charge of trying to create a better approach, a more comprehensive approach. First, to improve conditions in the countries of origin. So what they have been discussing are mainly two actions. The first one is to invest in Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, to improve living conditions of people. And the second one is also to invest in more humanitarian aid that is absolutely needed, not only in the origin country, but also in transit. The problem that we see is that, as I said, criminal violence in these countries has destroyed entire communities. So many people, they don't have a place to stay or a place to come back after migration, or they cannot have the possibility to stay living in their own homes, in their own places. So this idea of investing in development projects and in jobs and better opportunities, of course, is important. It's something that must be done, but not necessarily will make any changes in the short term. So they started to discuss very briefly the topic and the way both governments, the Mexican government and the US, will collaborate to stop forced migration, because President AMLO says migration should be, no one should be forced to flee from their places, but the reality is that they are forced to flee and they are not being protected according to the international law and the conventions that Mexico has signed, like the Convention of Geneva Convention or the Cartagena Convention. So there are many contradictions in the Mexican public discourse, and it's very interesting for us at this moment as researchers of migration studies to see the new interaction of the US government with the new administration and the clear compromise that President Biden and Vice President Harris expressed to help people to stay in their countries of origin and to improve conditions for international protection. But let's see, because for the whole administration of Trump, the asylum system in the US was very much limited and diminished. So I think it will take time to reestablish the conditions for international protection, and hopefully Mexico will also get to improve the living conditions of people who arrived to Mexico as forced migrants.
Wow, fascinating. So many open questions. Alethia, we're going to have you as a guest again, because there's so much to talk about, especially these challenging times. But today, I think it was a mission accomplished about talking about the Caravanas book. I just want to read something what the School of Public Affairs press release had to say about the book, so our audience knows. It's an admirable example of collaborative research that offers a timely analysis from ground zero of the challenges immigrants navigate and powerfully documents their humanity. I think that encompasses a lot on what the book is all about. Alethia, I want to congratulate you again. Alethia is a research fellow at the Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas at UNAM. She's a sociologist, and she's co-author of this book, along with Luciana Gandini, research fellow at American University, and Juan Carlos Narváez Gutierrez. The book is published by the University Seminar on Internal Displacement Studies, Migration, Exile, and Repatriation, SUDIMER, which we will be working with, I'm pretty sure, and is co-edited along with the Institute of Legal Studies at UNAM and the National Diversity Lab, LND, both units within the Institute. Alethia, anything you want to add?
I just want to really thank you for the opportunity of talking about this book. We are still working. We didn't stop fieldwork, even though during the pandemic, we have been trying to keep in touch with organizations, migrants, and other actors involved in to understand the transit and the arrival of migrants in Mexico and in the US. So I hopefully will have more opportunities to discuss further research. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. You will. We will cross paths again. I'm sure we will do some work together at UNAM Chicago with you guys. And again, thank you very much. My name is Alberto Foncerrada. I am your host at CAFÉ EXPRESSO. This is a program with UNAM Chicago in alliance with Spanish Public Radio. Until next time.